Sure. So I was raised in a dysfunctional home, and my dad was very verbally and emotionally abusive to my mom. And so at a very young age, it brought me to a place of where I felt like it would have been safer to be a boy. And this is before I went to kindergarten. And I would ride my tricycle over to pick my girlfriend up because we were going to get married. Now, as I watched this abuse between my mom and dad, or coming from my dad to my mom, it gave me the messages that women were hated, women were weak, and women were vulnerable. And as I watched my mom cave, underneath the pressure of this abuse, I realized, you're my you're my role model. I don't want to grow up to be like that. That's not safe. I don't want to be hated. I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to be weak, but yet I didn't want to be my dad either. I didn't want to be that man. So I made a vow at a very early age that I'm going to be the man my dad is not. And I spent time rescuing women, those who were hurting or came from another abusive relationship. I would, rescue them. As I continued to grow up, my little brother was born, and he's 7 years younger than me, and he was adored. So that gave me another message that as a girl, I can be replaced. And to have my dad's affection and affirmation, I need to be a boy. And then, as I continued to grow, that feeling of longing to be a boy never left me. And I started having fantasies about having girlfriends. And then between the ages of 10 and 12, I was sexually molested by a family member, which really enforced that women are weak, women are hated, and women are vulnerable. And then, I went through high school still with longings to be a boy, fantasizing about having a girlfriend. And when I was 16, I had bought a car and I started to lead a double life. I would go out, I would tell my parents I'm going one place, but actually I was going to pick up a girl posing as a guy for a date. And then at the age of 19, I could no longer handle it. I got very desperate about, I thought and felt one thing, but when I looked in the mirror, it told me another. So I started on hormones and changed my name and began to live as a man. I think it's a mixed bag. For me, I'm enough outgoing and an extrovert that I made friends. I didn't want anybody to know my lifestyle. So I didn't really hang out with, any clubs or in the LGBTQ community because I wanted to have a normal life. And so outside of that, I did. I just had a normal life, made friends, hung out with people. I did not experience the loneliness, though there is that certain belief that I am alone because I am the only one who struggles. And that really is a belief. Now, I know that there are those who are in the lifestyle and they tend to isolate because they do feel alone. And that's where I believe the loneliness sets in. But that wasn't true for me. Sure. So I was in a relationship, and when I got out of that one, I got right back into another one. So I had a rebound relationship. And in that rebound relationship, I fell very deep into a pornography addiction. I had to watch it every day. It was like my drug of choice. And after I got out of that relationship and the Lord called to me, I was freed from that pornography addiction. Sure. So when I was getting out of that rebound relationship, I was involved in the orchestra at church and I was driving to church and the Lord called to me and he said, "Will you now? Will you now?" And I took this inventory of my life and I'm like, I have nothing in the way. There's no reason why I can't. So I said, "Yes, Lord." And for the next 4 years, I opened my heart, my life everywhere to the Lord. And he just continued to woo me and woo me and woo me. And then one day I had a spiritual dad, and he came to me and he asked me, he said, "Can I talk to you?" And I had this feeling in my gut when he asked me that question that I'm going to be confronted. And I said, sure. I followed him. We went back to behind the church. There's a little prayer room there behind the sanctuary. And when I walked in there, there was a pastor sitting there, Dave, who I knew. He was my friend. And I sat down across from him, and Dave said to me, now, this whole time, this 4 years, I was still living as a man. And Dave looked at me and he said, we're hearing rumors about you, and we just want to know, who are you? Who are you really? And I said to him, I'm a woman living as a man. And when I said that, the Holy Spirit went, and it blew into me. And it was in that moment that I knew I had to go back to being the woman that God had created me to be. There was like no plan B. It's only plan A, straight out of this lifestyle into who he said he created me to be. And from that time forward, I have never looked back and haven't wanted to be a man since that time. Yeah, so it took me about 5 years after I said yes to the Lord and came out of the lifestyle, working on, it wasn't just the physical effects, but it was also the emotional and my thinking and my belief system that had to be overcome. I had to wrestle with the belief that women are good and they have something to offer. Women are valuable. We have a voice. We're important. And being a woman is good. And understanding that there was a place for me as a woman, and then of course understanding the other side of the coin is that I didn't go to live as a man so I could be with women. I went to live as a man so I could be safe. It was running from my pain. And living as a man was just a manifestation of a deeper wounding, of a deeper legitimate needs that went unmet. So I'm trying to find them, trying to get them met by living as a man. Sure. I think you could do part of it as far as coming out of the lifestyle without Jesus, learning how to think differently, but there's no truth in that. You're only handling the facts. The facts are, I'm not a man, I'm a woman. But what Jesus facilitated was the healing for me. I went through deep forgiveness of my dad, which was that was unbelievably hard to do that. But yet the fruit that came from that, working through the emotional woundedness and having Jesus come in and be my dad and heal that area was phenomenal. The fruit that came from that, as well as the other emotional healing. I was severely emotionally detached. I didn't know how to feel anything. And so the Lord had to begin to reattach my emotions and have me to understand that feeling emotions was good and I'm safe in feeling those emotions. And then also he had to come in, the Lord had to come in and restore my house. So there was a physical healing from the hormones. And he began to show me, this is the plan I had for you, and at one point, I had to ask him when I realized how free I was. I asked him, when did all this happen? Because it felt like when I'm dealing with one thing over here, like one thing over here, the Lord comes in and unravels all this over here, which brings healing to this. And that was so remarkable to me. And I asked him, so Lord, how did this happen? Why, I'm free. I'm so free, Lord. When did that happen? How did that happen? How did you change my thinking? Because, the Bible talks about be renewed in our minds. And it really was a renewing process. It wasn't about just denouncing the lies and embracing the truth, but it was also renewing our mind that I did live a lie. And when I asked the Lord those questions, because I have made a vow, I will never go back to being a woman. And, I'm like, when did that happen, Lord? How did that happen? And he pondered my question and he kind of did this. And he's thinking really hard. And he says, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, how do you not know? How do you not know? You were there. I know you saw me. You walked with me. I know you were there. How do you not know? And the Lord said to me, I never saw you that way. And what I realized is even in that 11 years that I lived as a man, the Lord only ever saw me through the daughter he created me to be. He only ever saw me through the plans that he had for my life. Yeah. Of course, there's the effects of the hormones and the residual effects that's left. So like, the thinning hair, male pattern baldness, my voice, it's still a little deeper than most women's. Facial hair, I went through a tremendous amount of electrolysis as well as laser to burn off the hair. As far as everything else, I think that a lot of the effects have worn off. My period started back again. I did go into menopause earlier than most women because of the hormonal effects. That's about all I can think of right now. As far as the effects of living in the lifestyle, I did have a mastectomy. I had the top surgery, which it was probably about 4 or 5 years after coming out of lifestyle. I went and had the reconstructive surgery to have my top restored. Well, I will say there's a part of that that's still a bit of a mystery. But I know that as I embraced the truth of who he was, and part of the attraction that I had for women was, trying to get that nurturing met from women that I didn't get from my mom. And, there was that belief. Now, I thought homosexuality was wrong. So living as a man, obviously I'm heterosexual. And so as I started out on the process, the attraction to women didn't go away right away. But as I continued the process of figuring out what took me into living as a man and then embracing the truth that would continue to bring me out of that and into living as a woman, it seemed to be a natural process or transition that one day I was noticing a man. I was like, oh, wow, you're pretty cute. Yeah, you're cute. You are cute. And it was as I began to realize and saw that change that it was like, oh, wow, I'm free from my attraction to women. I can admire their beauty and go, wow, she's beautiful. But there's not that thing in me that goes, ooh, and I want to be with her. It's like, wow, you're beautiful. And there's this guy over here that's pretty cute. And so it was just this natural trade-off, if you will. And I believe it was because I was coming into the truth of how I was created to be, of who I was created to be, and how the Lord wired me to really be feminine and to be a female. No, I do not. And I don't think it's so because of the culture. What the culture says is acceptable, what the culture says is true. A lot of the culture bases truth on emotion, and which we all know we can be deceived by how we feel. The other common denominator is that it's comprehensive sex ed now is taught in schools, which teaches kids at ages 4 and 5 that to masturbate is good. And they're messing with these young kids, and into their young adult age as far as be who you are. Well, how can you be who you are if it's not affirmed who you are? And there's you know, there's no mental examination or any kind of what do I want to say, evaluation that's done to see where they are mentally. And instead of just saying, here's the hormones because of the way you feel, why aren't they asking the questions, why do you feel this way? And I think too, the church is behind. I feel like in some cases, it's almost 45 years behind in teaching on what is real sexuality. What is it? God created man and he created woman. And what does that mean? What does that look like? And how do we affirm that? And teaching them about identity and how important that is. And, as well as the parents, so there's the partnering with the church, with the parents to help them understand, as well as all of us, who we are in Christ. We do way better when we understand who we are in Christ and that we have an intentional God who's created us on purpose for a purpose. And we don't really hear that taught very much. And then, to stop some of the teachings that's going on in school, I don't know if the parents are aware of what's being taught. I read this article about a teacher who the other teacher, her coworker, was teaching this comprehensive sex ed, and she didn't even know she was doing that. So even, coworkers within the school doesn't understand what's happening to, the younger generation. And so I think there's a lot of elements out there that are just missing. They're either missing information, they're just untruthful, and those outlets that have the truth are being silenced. And that's not helpful. Social media should not be your source of truth. Even the Christian social media platforms, I think they have an element there, and I think they're trying for sure. But your source of truth is going to be found in the Word. Your source of truth is going to be found by seeking Jesus and going to him with your questions. I held everything out to him that I didn't know. What do you say, Lord? What do you say? And I think what makes it hard too is that Jesus and the Lord, they're not always tangible. They don't feel tangible. They're not in the moment. And so we reach out for a warm body to, someone who we can have this conversation with, but then also not waiting long enough. And I think that, our culture teaches us that everything needs to be quick. We have like a microwave culture, and, things take time to understand, things take time to change, and it's being willing to wait. But relying on social media is not going to get you the truth. Reading books necessarily isn't going to get you the truth. I read books about intercession and the prophetic. I didn't read necessarily about, transgender. Of course, there wasn't really a whole lot out there when I came out of my process, but I still came back to the core of God, who did you create me to be? And it's looking at that. It's not what we want or what we think or how we feel. Those things aren't necessarily the truth. So it's really going hard after the truth and finding those outlets that are teaching the truth. And there's lots of podcasts out there that are truthful, and it's finding them sometimes. And I'm not saying you can't find them on social media, but when you do, they're most likely going to be shut down. There was just like a whole, I want to say there was like 40 ministries that were just shut down off of Facebook. They are considered hate. They are considered terrorism. I'm like, really? You're preaching the gospel? So it's looking for those places where you're going to find truth. And as long as you're seeking the Lord, he will take you to those places that will present the truth, because really that's what it's about. So change is not impossible. You can have change, but you have to really want it. If you keep one foot seeking the lifestyle, if you keep one foot in with your LGBTQ friends, you can't, it doesn't work. Both feet have to be in the truth. You have to seek God. You have to want the truth. You have to bathe yourself in truth. And I'm going to be honest, there were parts of it that were hard. It was hard. However, I'm free. So I guess the question comes back to you is, what do you want? Do you want that freedom? Do you want that hope that Jesus has? Then you seek him. Don't seek it in the world. You won't find it. The world will only lead you astray. It led me astray for 30 years because I believed a lie. And a lie went deep. I bought it hook, line, and sinker because it aligned with how I felt. But once I realized that what I felt was deceptive, then I needed to figure out what was the truth. And seeking the truth, again, it can be difficult, but the Lord even warned us and said, narrow is the way. And if you want him, you'll be found. You'll be found by him. His word is true. If you seek him with your whole heart, you will be found by him. And so he's reaching out to you as much as you're reaching out to him. And he is an intense God. He's an intentional God. And he loves you. He loves you. He loves you. He loves you. And you can't find the depth. There's no bottom to his love. And I just want to encourage you that you need to rest in that he loves you, even when it looks like he doesn't. And the world's yakking in your ear, telling you, you can't do this, but you can. I did. And there's others like me who did. So you can. And surround yourself with people who will speak the truth to you. You have to have a community. You have to have those that will lift your arms up when you're in the battle, those who will stand in faith with you, those who will pray with you. You need a community. And if that's within your church body, then that's within your church body. But you need people around you who will continue to speak that truth. That when you begin to question, am I doing the right thing? They'll come by and they're like, yes. And the Lord will meet you in your doubt. He's not afraid of your doubt. He's not afraid of your questions. Ask him the hard ones. I did. Nothing happened to me. I mean, he didn't strike me dead. He didn't hurt me. He just answered my questions. And he answered them with the truth. So it went deep into my soul. And the hope that I stand on now is because I found that in him. And yes, again, it was a wrestling match, but I would do it all again if I had to. I would do it all again because of now the peace, the hope, the joy that I have of living every day as far as who God created me to be. It's so worth it. I am so free from so many things that the list is long. And so you can have that too. You can have that too.